36 reasons why you should be disappointed in Heckler and Koch.
Kurz bevor ihr Alter und stirbt, machst du ein Kind, damit, wenn du stirbst, die immer an dich denken kann und plötzlich wird alles klar und mal.
What do you mean the G36 is disappointing? You just can't handle this technology. My dad was a Navy SEAL. You can't handle it. You can't handle it. You can't. Look, I get it. There are H&K fans who will kneel and kiss the boots of the H&K Corporation and profess the G36's lightweight and ambidextrous design. The die-hard fans make a big ruckus over it, and yeah, it's just a German M16. Better yet, a German M16 made out of plastic. Yeah, I know it's technically polymer, but still, technically plastic. 1990-1995 Heckler and Koch G36. This was H&K's last-ditch attempt to develop a rifle for the Bundeswehr, aka the German army, because Germany tried to modernize its military with science, and the West German government were just shoveling boatloads of tax dollars into military contracts because communism bad, and wouldn't it be a good idea to build a rifle complex plagued with reliability issues, one of which is that the thing, I don't know what you call the G11, would mag dump and explode because something called cook-off, and the cartridge, which was just as complex, fragile, and no one in the world would ever use. Sure, it was good on paper, but it failed so bad that the program faced planning obscurity, and pre-reunification West Germany was swimming in cash from European-American tourism and domestic business like manufacturing, so West Germany was swinging cash. Why not? Designed by... I'm just not gonna read that, but have fun trying for yourself. Was a joint venture consisting of Heckler and Koch, Dynamit Nobel, and Hans Witzler. I probably pronounced that wrong. Correct me in the comment section if I was wrong on the pronunciation. The concept of the G11 project was to design a rifle which had a small group sizing. To put it into a question, how can we fire as many bullets in one burst as fast as possible? So Dynamit Nobel came up with the DM11 4.73 by 33mm caseless ammunition. This innovation was one of the unique aspects of the G11 rifle, which would in theory allow the G11 to shoot 3 rounds at 2,000 rounds per minute burst, also thanks to another unique design of the firing mechanism, which could be explained as a rotating drum assembly. Now, what is a rotating drum assembly? That's a good question that even science can't answer about the mad German wizard space magic which was used to develop the G11 rifle. If someone said, or if it's written in an article as rotating drum action assembly, whatever, but this is just an interpretation of what I read off articles. How does it work? Well, wait for the G11 episode, but to put it in terms for the average layman like me, spoiler alert, I didn't. The super hot gases from the barrel assembly are recycled back into the rotating drum assembly, cycling the cartridges from the magazine then into the chamber while in tandem with a sort of free-floating spring action assembly with another rotating drum which uses the recoil energy of the assembly until all 3 shots have been fired. Then, a small mechanical actuator stops the mechanical action. It's kind of the same principle with the AN-94, except the AN-94 is a Soviet knockoff of the Clockworks technology. If you thought what I said was complete and utter nerd gibberish, well, you're not wrong, me neither. It's hard to explain in words how this German space magic works. Hell, I had a hard time explaining how the G11 works, period. And this should have been just a G36 video, but this is how much historical context is needed to explain German gun history. The G11 was a research and development project which would end in 1990-1993 due to the reunification of East and West Germany. So, the German government could no longer supply those juicy weapons contracts, plus no one really accepted the G11. It was pitched to NATO and it did compete for adoption in the United States, but ultimately by the early 90s, this was a black hole for German tax dollars and no one adopted this thing. Not even Germany, in the early 90s, so it failed like a slow-motion train wreck until the program was eventually cancelled. While the G11 was being developed, H&K had a plan B. The G41 was H&K's interpretation of the M16/AR-15 platform using the 5.56 by 45mm NATO cartridge. The G41 was supposed to be a placeholder field rifle, while the G11 was going to be for special forces. But the G11 program was such a drain on H&K's funding, along with the G41 being too expensive to produce on top of all the models being suggested for production. By the time the G41 was fully designed and set for production, it was already being phased out by the G36, which was also, by this time, greenlit for production. But it begs the question, if East and West Germany were reunited, and East Germany was a part of the communist bloc, why didn't Germany, when reunified, just adopt the massive stockpile of AK-74s? And the answer is that the United States would have seen this as an encroachment of communism. Since the US loves to impose its freedom values in the entire world, the US loves to play proxy puppet games by destabilizing socialist governments. The US did some pretty Geneva Convention levels of violations during the 1950s in Cuba, Iraq, and of course Vietnam. There's also other countries like Afghanistan, which the US tried to turn into a proxy state for economic sorry, I meant democratic reasons. If you thought the KGB in the Soviet Union was scary enough, just wait until you find out how during the US's most paranoid Red Scare phase would have been the equivalent to some poor soul in communist China getting disappeared for making fun or critiquing their glorious Emperor Xi Jinping, or any equivalent dictatorship stomping down on a movement protesting for basic human freedoms, or just human beings speaking up against the inhumane treatment of themselves, fighting for a place where they don't have to worry about war, disease, and famine, which is barely upheld as a right even in a first world country like the United States. So yeah, no AK-74s for Germany, or embargo. Back to Germany, 1990. There were 3 companies that were competing for weapons contracts in 1990. H&K with its HK-50 design, and Steyr, read it, forget about it, not reading it, with its Steyr AUG, which was an Austrian design that went back all the way to the 1960s. There was another company, but their requirements for the adoption into the German army were so high that the third company mentioned wasn't even relevant. HK won the weapons trial, and in 1995, the HK G36 would be finalized and adopted into the German army, ready for production. It was a long struggle, with the design barely making it. At one point, it went to the United States to compete for a weapons contract twice. The US had some pretty underwhelming remarks and surprised at how much the program was barely hanging on by a thread. Yes, the G36 almost failed, but issues wouldn't just end when the rifle was approved and began being manufactured. Right around the late 90s, early 2000s, conflicts had started to flare up in the Middle East. Okay, so before I post another wall of text explaining the whole history, I'm just going to explain that the whole conflict with the Middle East and the whole flare-up goes back all the way to the 1800s, when the British Empire declared that Palestine is a Israeli state because there was a Zionist movement. And basically before World War I, Britain gave away the land to a massive Zionist movement which claimed that Israel, where Palestine was the homeland of the Hebrew people. This pissed off a ton of Muslims of all nationalities, and started a whole conflict which would lead into World War I. That's why the Ottomans sided with the Axis powers of Germany. But after Germany lost and the Ottoman Empire fell, it started pretty much a whole cascade of it pretty much had a boiling kettle situation where the whole nationality of Arab nations in the Middle East and the Arab nations as a whole, and the whole culture would just resent the West for what they did to Palestine, and it's still what happens on to Palestine to this day, where Israel, which is pretty much a conservative military state, Trumpian conservatives think that Israel is this whole land of sacrifice, which when Judgment Day comes, Israel is going to be sacrificed to the great war or whatever. It's some conspiracy theory bullshit that we're not going to go into. But basically, if I really explain the whole reason why there is conflicts in the Middle East, this video would be literally an hour long, and I, to be honest, don't want to get into it. Maybe I would like to talk about it another time, because it is a fascinating topic and a good reason to a lot of context, and a lot of reasons why we still fight wars, because it's mostly the stupid US government, the stupid US conservatives and the conservative party that think that still funding the military and Israel is a thing, even though we should like let Israel go and free Palestine, in my most educated opinion, and from what we study from history and why we have these issues in the Middle East. I think we should just let Palestine go and let the Arabs within Palestine have their land. Well, I don't mean just by Arabs. In Palestine, there is multi-array, even of black Israelites within Palestine. There are different ethnicities within Palestine which firmly resent what Israel is and what it represents, which from a lot of internet sources show that Israel is just a homogenous and a racist state supported by the conservative government in the United States. This topic is not very appropriate to talk about when you're reviewing a Lego gun in a Lego game. So I'm not really a PhD student studying the sociology and the effects of Israel on the Arab nation as a whole and why we have conflicts in the Middle East. That's for people who are smarter than me. Places like Kuwait, Yemen, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, and many more had become destabilized to the point where terrorist groups and religious fundamental extremists had gained a foothold in those destabilized nations. The whole tangled fiasco started in the 1970s when the US and Russia, which was known as the Soviet Union or USSR, wanted to assist the region through financial and military aid for an ideological foothold in the region. This would eventually escalate into a fully blown proxy war between the US and the USSR. Both sides engaged in the militarization of the region. The US would send weapons to Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. Both nations had also nefarious intentions to destabilize ethnic and religious groups within Afghanistan, along the US trying to sponsor a group known as the Mujahideen, or Freedom Fighters in English dub. This was a corrupt and unstable group which would compete for power in the region for political and material gain through the Western beneficiaries. And just another way of saying that the United States was on its own in this situation because the EU didn't really want to get involved in these proxy conflicts. Yes, the EU did contribute a tiny amount through the EU Peacekeeper Corps, but by the late 90s, the EU wouldn't see the situation contributing any good to the region, and the EU would even condemn the US of creating such a mess in the Middle East. The USSR also wanted to contribute to the ideological foothold of its own by providing military supplies, arms, equipment, and funding for Afghan public schools. But a lot of the public schools had low attendance rates, or the schools would just shut down from lack of funding. As a result, the crude Soviet education system would eventually collapse. Eventually, the proxy war kind of just ended due to the Soviet Union starting to fizzle out and eventually collapsing by the late 1980s, early 90s. Both the major ideological superpowers like the US and the USSR would abandon the region altogether. However, the remaining proxy wars and ethnic agitations would result in a destabilized region ripened for radical terror groups. The situation also was exacerbated with the US pulling out of the region, and funding would be cut to the Afghan pseudo-state and the already sketchy Mujahideen. As a result, the barely holding on to a string Afghan state government along with the Mujahideen would collapse, giving way to Islamist extremist groups like the Taliban grow in size and influence. This would come back to bite the US right in its freedom, and here we go again. The US would do that thing again where it would spend billions of dollars on weapons, equipment, and political bribe money only for the region to destabilize and reoccupied by one of many Islamist fundamentalist groups which would always engage in shit like drug trafficking, kidnapping of mostly women and children for sex slavery, and the illegal sales of old Cold War era firearms and anything left by the US from the 20 years of the US spending billions of dollars in the military-industrial complex. Basically, now, yes, the Taliban basically now owns billions of dollars worth of US military weaponry and equipment. This will totally not backfire. It's funny how the US spends hundreds and billions of dollars on wars nowadays, which it doesn't even win anymore, and yet the US still doesn't have high-speed rail or a better electrical grid or infrastructure which isn't crumbling in front of your eyes. It really shows where the US priorities are. By the late 2000s, early 2010s, problems had started to roll in from Afghanistan. Since there wasn't much testing, only a few competition tests during weapons trials, but even then the G36 didn't get pushed to its limits as much as it would be pushed beyond what it was capable of during a combat situation. However, the testing which was done on the G36 wasn't extensive and rigorous enough, which would have shown weak points in the rifle's design or how durable are the materials which the G36 is made of. HK had suggested to the German army that the G36 wasn't built for sustained fire. That's why the MG36 never went into production, but when it comes to war, you don't know where your enemy is, so if an enemy soldier with an AK does pop out of the trees, bushes, or rocks, the German soldier is surprised and out of fear would most likely magged up for his own life. But some German soldiers didn't read the fine print, so when they decided to pot-shot the enemy from 300 yards after 2 30-round mag dumps, they would miss. This is just a normal thing, by the way, that happens to most rifles. Some rifles can handle the stress of sustained fire better than others, but H&K did state that the G36 wasn't built for sustained fire. But it was still a massive PR disaster. On top of that, the German government had gotten involved. And in 2012, Germany would sue H&K for providing a rifle which, according to the case, didn't meet the already stratospheric requirements, even though the G36 met the previous requirements, which were to be lightweight, preferably 10 pounds or 4.5 kilograms, and have an effective range of 200 meters or 656.168 feet. And the G36 did fulfill the requirements which were set by the weapons trials, but a dirty word had gotten into the psyche of H&K and the G36 program, and this was politics. Unfortunately, by the time H&K won the lawsuit, the G36 was already being phased out by different rifles or replaced by the H&K 416. The G36 would have a nice and rocky 30 years of service, having a lot of fans and a lot of military generals and politicians hating it. The countries that the G36 served, starting off with the European Union, Germany, Finland, Poland, Greece, Italy, Sweden, Albania, Spain, Slovakia, Poland. Outside of the European Union, it served also in the Asia region, Japan, Hong Kong, unfortunately not an independent state anymore, the Philippines, Malaysia, South Korea. Outside of Asia, in the Middle Eastern region, Egypt, Iraq, Libya, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, along with the Americas, United States, Canada, Mexico, Brazil, etc. It was served in the 2001 to 2021 Afghan War, 2003-2011 Iraq War, 2006 to present-day Mexican Drug War, 2014 to present-day Yemen Civil War, a bunch of proxy interventions on Yemen from Saudi Arabia, 2014 to present day, but according to Wikipedia. Yeah, I know it's not a reliable source, but there's a lot of fine details which would take me a month and probably an hour-long video detailing the conflict. I don't know, it seems a lot. And summarize from what I learned, which isn't much. Don't take my word for it. President Mansur, I'm just not going to pronounce it. President of Yemen was kicked out of power by an Islamist group known as the Houthi movement. If you get down to the details, to put it short, it's an ongoing ethnic conflict. Oh hey, would you look at that? Ethnic conflict, proxy war. I wonder where this really started. Did we just go in full circle? It's like you can smell the US's fuck-ups and desperation for oil. And that's all the brief history for this video. Now in my mind I thought that, yeah, this video may be long, but at least it sets up context and a reference to the G11 and the 416 video, which I will do eventually, but let's be honest, I'll probably have to write another 11-page script. Moving on. Culturally, the G36 is more popular and well known in video games and gun enthusiast culture more than the average moviegoer. To the average moviegoer, it's just a gun. Who really cares? Shooty action. So of course it would be in AAA titles like Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, and a bunch, so on and so forth. Battlefield 3, maybe 4, depends on stats and relevance. Other obscure but not really games like Stalker, Shadow Chernobyl, and Clear Skies, Team Fortress 2, and Team Fortress Classic. It's more of a sniper, not really sure if it really counts. Also, no offense, but Team Fortress is kind of weird. I know, it's made for a reason. There are people who like it. It's made by Valve, which is like, according to many, is the greatest video game company that was ever made in the god of Gaben's hands. And it would later on to go make bank off a game's redistribution platform, but I never played it, so I don't really care. Next is like Rainbow Six Siege, here horseshoes and hand grenades, but that's just trivia, so, and etc. and etc. It's in a lot of video games. Movie-wise, 2007 Hitman, V for Vendetta, which ironically a lot of right-wing and alt-right fascists love to use as an inspiration for their movements, even though ironically the movie warns about the same fascists which would set up the same fascist government depicted in V for Vendetta. And oh, there goes my 50% of my like to dislike ratio. Ha, yay. I mean, it's overall a great movie, commenting about the dangers of modern day alt-right. Well, in the movie, it's an already established right-wing fascist government which takes control of many people's lives. And yeah, that's all the movies. There's a lot of obscure movies in the 90s and the early 2000s, stuff like I said before, but your average moviegoer doesn't really care about the specifics and what gun is in a movie, so I don't think it really matters. One more would be like an anime. It's called Cowboy Bebop, which is a cultural piece, which is like a cultured piece of media made in Japan. Its guns are very detailed and it's very nice. I actually haven't really seen the anime. I have seen like certain movie clips of it, so it's pretty cool in my opinion. I just haven't seen it. It's time for the stats. Yeah, I can't wait to I already am short-circuiting my brain from like reading the script. For fuck's sake. 31 DPH, aka damage per hit, or DPP, damage per bullet, from 0 to 80 studs, tapering off to 25 DPH or DPP. We'll just use DPP because it sounds cooler. At 140 studs, headshot multiplier of 1.4x, times 1.4 basically, torso multiplier of 1, hip accuracy of 29, sight accuracy of 23, and an overall accuracy of 30. Fire rate is 750 rounds per minute, or RPM. I promise you, it's not a car thing. Standard 30 in the mag, 120 reserve, using the 5.56 by 45mm NATO ammunition. Generic stats at best. In comparison, the HK416, which has an overall similar, but there are differences, specs of 31 DPP from 80 studs, tapering off to a slightly higher DPP of 24 studs at 160 studs, a slightly greater range of 20 studs in comparison to the G36 25 DPP at 140 studs. And yes, it may have a higher than normal fire rate for a 5.56 NATO rifle, having a fire rate of 150 rounds per minute. Handling wise, it does a bit better, having a hip accuracy of 43, sight accuracy of 24, and an overall accuracy rating of 31. Overall, doing better stats wise across the board on paper, but when it comes to the feel of the rifle while using it in game, well, it's too similar to the point where even if you record footage side by side and compare it, The HK416 maybe competes with a higher fire rate than the G36, but stats-wise, it's too similar to tell, and that's with no attachments. I call it stock or unmodified. You can compare the G36 to other guns like the AUG series, AUG A2 in particular, being right above the G36 at rank 39, which is also a 5.56 NATO cartridge rifle. And you'll definitely not be that rank unless you're trying to rank 0 to 100 speedrun. In that case, you won't be there for long, and you'll drop the G36 from your psyche completely and forget that it even existed, realizing that the G36 is even a thing because some PF YouTuber was clickbaiting about how godly its stats were and how the rifle is broken when they function pretty similarly. Sure, the attachments can alter the handling, damage, and range completely. If you want to open that can of worms, go for it, I guess. PDW side of the coin, the G36C, when it comes to the stats, it does better by having a higher close range damage range of 33 DPB instead of the G36's 31 DPB, but it comes at a massive cost. And that is that it's a
pleb ding-dong warrior class.
It's only for the most tactile, sweaty, and deep vein thrombosiest of the PF community. 33 DPB tapering off to 20 DPB from 60 to 90 studs. Hope you enjoy getting wrecked by shotguns and pain. In the LMG class, we have the MG36.
MG3KWS has a fire rate of 1000 RPM. The MG3K puts the MG3K around, and the
3K, for fuck's sake, I hate German names.
Rank 1 is or you're just too much a low level pleb.
And you're gonna buy it. You're gonna see a rank 30 plus with this, and you'll tilt so hard that you'll spin faster than dead spinning in their graves. Fun fact, Ian talks about the same issue with why the MG36 wasn't adopted as an LMG, even though HK did have a plan on a design with a more reinforced receiver, so it could technically be used for sustained spray, but this would have been a complete opposite of what the G36 was designed for, so it was scrapped. Now, go to your corner and think about what you've done. The SLA is in the unique in-between class known as DMRs. The DMR class is this indecisive class which can't choose between an assault rifle or a sniper rifle. And even in this class, the SLA offers a far more different experience than your typical DMR in the DMRs class. Shooting at 650 rounds per minute, having a greater fire rate than half the other DMRs, except for the VSS Venturis, which shoots at 700 rounds per minute, while also doing 55 DPB at 60 studs, tapering off to 38 DPB at 120 studs, but it's got 10 rounds, while the SLA has the standard 30 rounds. The SLA is more forgiving than the "you got 10 rounds, and if you mag dump now, and you fuck up, you're on your own. Reload, buddy." Plus 28 DPB at 148 studs gives you a ton of room to keep players put, and you've got a lot of range to play with. Along with being unlocked at rank 38, it's a fairly good gun to practice your aim with, because a lot of PF players tend to CQCs or set up a 50 stud circle around the map, then lay down and prone until they find a poor and innocent player walking into their dirty, nasty scope while scoped in, then gets their head bazinga'd off. Final words, good gun. Finally, we move on to the carbine section, and this is another category with the paradox of choice effect, because a lot of the guns in this class are very similar stats-wise. I'll just read them out real quick. You do the 34 DPB from 70 studs, tapering off to 19 DPB at 160 studs, 750 RPM fire rate, standard ammo capacity of 3120, hip accuracy is 36, sight accuracy is 15. Jeez, that's pretty awful, but I've seen worse, and accuracy of 31. Sure, you might say that the M4A1 is unlocked at rank 0, and to that I say, before I say anything stupid, I would like to say that the PF meta does change often, and it also depends on the community as well, but I have a feeling that unilaterally, everyone is going to agree to the stats change, and I quote the PF balance 100 Google Sheets sheet. We would essentially be swapping the stats of the G36C and the G36K, so that they can fit in their respective classes a bit better. If the community isn't a fan of the swapping of these stats, we can translate them to other weapons instead, respectively. Basically, and if we look at the overall spreadsheet, the M4A1 isn't getting any nerfs, but it's getting an increase to 800 RPM from the OG 780 RPM with no nerfs. Well, I have no strong feelings. I'm just gonna say it's just the official PF log, which is subjective to change if the community has enough outcry, which is permanent. Oh, everyone's gonna bitch about this one for days. And we are done, thank God. This is one of the most detailed histories of a rifle I've ever seen in my life. Jesus fuck. Unfortunately, Stylus loves to shuffle the whole PF meta, so by the time this video is released, the stats are going to be irrelevant in the update or balance patch coming soon. Sure, this makes this chore a whole lot easier. The PF meta is dynamic. I would like to think that the PF community knows what's best for the game, but most of the time, it makes me want to rip my ears and eyes out. I get that the meta is subjective and it's based off communities within a community, which is pretty divisive because it's based off playstyle, plus not everyone is gonna be happy. There will always be unhappy customers. Maybe it's probably better for the greater good of the community if players didn't know what gun got nerfed or buffed, because we literally have players that dedicate hours and days just to have a title over a gun in a LEGO FPS game. Something tells me that some people in the community take this shit way too seriously, but hey, that's just a theory, PF theory. And now enjoy the live commentary. What it is. Okay. He tried again. Nah, that's such a bad idea. Oh my god. Holy shit. We're good. Shit. Oh my god. Jesus. This game is like not bad. It's pretty fun. Oh my god. Now this is the crack cocaine addiction that people fell in love with. This is why people like Phantom Forces. Maybe IDK. I saw you hiding there. Nice try. We won. Like 31-5. Oh my god, about time. Holy shit, we actually did well with the G36. Quite the GG. And thank Christ, because I would have not liked this game at all. Oh wait, the AUG is not even G36. What am I saying? What the hell? I did It's not even a G36 variant. It's literally the monsters the paralysis monster levels of variants. Which, I mean, the G36 has like, no, actually I'll install like a Mars site, because that has a laser. I don't want it to be completely useless. Rifle. Couldn't do anything about it. My teammate is gonna die anyway. But not the purpose of this rifle. Holy shit. No. Ah, that's spawn. That's eating. That's biting off too much you can chew. But yeah, we've pretty much taken... Ah, no. What was that? Side vaulting bullshit. No, I'm not. I'm just not. No! Strong arm is the other one. This one's a GB22. It's a one-shot, so... Cool. Nope. Ah, yes, there we go. Ah, fuck. Not using that again. Man, that's just some aggressive people. I'm not contributing to the vote. I didn't say yes or no. Also, I genuinely don't want to get involved in the drama that proceeds after on Phantom Forces Reddits. It's genuinely cringe. I'm probably not even that big enough, but still, that are literal harassment campaigns. For like one player. Damn it. Probably not gonna happen. No. I think my chances have just been reduced to nothing. Oh no. Nope. My chances actually were good. We got, technically we got it, but we got like 40 kills. No lose. But still, I had fun. Just kind of proves that these guns at least have a purpose. Fuck. No. It's falling apart. Oh my god. I'd be worried because I heard like a bunch of... Oh, never mind. Somewhere I can go. Nope. That was... that's okay.
This is
a good combination for just the G36. I'll use the SL8 just because, but I'll do it on a different configuration that's a little bit more friendly to mid-range. This rifle, this sidearm isn't gonna help me much though. Oh yay! Oh no! Nah. Oh yeah. Oh my god. I'm coming. Oh, what a... That's kind of boring. Ooh, sneak attack. Ooh, double sneak attack. That's boring. I'm gonna leave. It was a fun game. No, why? This gun fucking sucks. You know, people say that G36, the MG36 has a niche, but like, you don't need it. You don't need it. Just buy the MG3KWS and you're good. Who cares? Holy shit! It's a fucking laser. Oh shit, 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 shit. That's a thing. How many rounds does that have? It says 50 rounds? Oh no. Oh my god. Dump your MG36s, boys. We're going nuclear. Oh, okay, I started some. 18 and 11 now. It's a fucking MG36. Yes. I'm dead serious. Try fucking alt aiming. It's already a good gun on top of it. See, but he's gonna, but he's aiming for the head. He's aiming for the head. Oh my god, he's cheating. Oh. I'm very upset. No, he's cheating. He's cheating. Yeah, as cool as this gun is, it's pretty disgusting. I don't use it much because I have morals. So, I'd rather use something that's a little bit more... What's the stat? Did they buff it? I have to check the sheet again, but... balance sheet. But yeah, that's all for the MG... Well, the HK G36 series for the live commentary gameplay. I'm not using them anymore. I think the whole G36 variants of guns is just irrelevant. I don't care. Personally, I don't care. You can literally use anything that suits your play style, and it doesn't. The reason why I scrungingly used it is because I tried different things. Ooh, we won. GG. And I finished with like almost a 1 point something KD. That is sad. Anyways, we're done. That's it. Okay, remind myself to end the stream here.